Welcome to a video on thedigital-lifestyle.com. In this video I'm going to have a quick look at Samsung Ultrabook, the ATIV Lite Ultrabook. It's a very nice thin Ultrabook from Samsung. So what we're going to do is a quick look at the exterior of it, feel the weight, keyboard, that kind of stuff, power it up and have a look at its performance and how it feels and how it works. Okay, first thing to look at, physical size. So it's 13.3 inch screen on this. Now I thought I'd compare that with, say, my 11 inch MacBook Air. See that it is bigger, and I'll show the thickness there. It is slightly thicker, but it's probably not a fair comparison because I haven't got a 13 inch MacBook Air to compare it. So it weighs about 1.5 kilograms. A nice glossy screen. Now let's just have a quick look at the ports before I fire it up. So we've got a USB 3 port, power, micro HDMI, and it got a network port, but it's supplied with this, which is a Ethernet adapter. So that plugs into there like that and gives you an Ethernet port. Right, let's have a look at the ports we've got in here. So we've got USB 3, we've got an Ethernet port, which I'll come back to in a sec, and micro HDMI. So for the HDMI side, you could use one of these micro HDMI adapters and fit that straight in there. For the networking, you get one of these little dongles. So you've got Ethernet on one side and this port. It looks like micro USB, but it doesn't seem to be, and that fits in there. So you've got option for network port. On the other side, we've got display port, a USB 2 port by the looks of it, headphone, and Kensington lock. Oh, I should say as well, it's power on there. And there's the other side. Right, let's fire this up then. Okay, let's fire this up. It's just asking me to choose the display language. As you can see, it's a touch screen. So I'm just going to go through the standard Windows setup process now. Okay, so I've got Windows up and running on here now. It's usually running Windows 8 rather than 8.1. It ships with Windows 8. You could install it through the store when you get that. So if you have a look at what's actually installed on here, as well as the standard apps, you've got a Samsung app, S Player. I don't know what that is actually. So install part of it is Samsung's app, a video player. The S security recognises the S names with the as with the Samsung Android stuff. We've got Skype, some Studios, Evernote, and a Samsung Music Hub, and a couple of other bits and pieces. Office on here. This is so it's got Office pre-installed, but I haven't got the key here, and it doesn't come with Office, so you're going to have to buy it, activate it, or with your own key, or try the Office 365. Okay, so what about the specs? This is it's got the quad core in it there. In fact, I called this an Ultrabook at the beginning, which I should correct myself really. Technically, it's not an Ultrabook because it's not an Intel processor in there. It's an AMD processor. It's got 4 GB of RAM. It's running 64-bit version of Windows, quad-core processor, which is up to 1.4 GHz, and it's full 10-point multi-touch on there. So what about its performance? Let's have a look at its rating. So I just run the performance index there. It's picked up 3.4, and that's the gaming graphics that's kind of let that down, not the system performance. See the disk base. The disk is an SSD drive, so that's what gives it that fast speed. Let's have a look. We've got 100 gig free, so I guess it's a 128 gig SSD drive on there, which seems pretty fast. So the specs you're looking at here aren't really sort of high-end, cutting edge, but they are reasonable. And this is, let's say, just check on the price, around £500, £600 for this model. So it's not the top of the range model, but it is a fairly it's lightweight machine, decent spec. It's got a couple of extra things from Samsung which we'll talk about shortly. What else? Oh, check screen resolution. It's running in 1366 by 768, which is probably about average. We've seen a lot of devices now with 1080p screens. This isn't like 720p, but as you can see, it's nice and clear on there. It's got a trackpad that supports scrolling, two-finger scrolling, so we can use that to scroll across, and I guess you could use that in Internet Explorer as well. I quite like the two-finger scrolling in Internet Explorer. It also supports Edge UI, so you can do the sort of swiping and bring the charms up. As I said before, I actually called this an Ultrabook, but technically it isn't because it's running on the AMD platform. And you can tell because it's a little heavier, 1.5 kilograms, feels heavier than a lot of the Ultrabooks, and it's probably a bit thicker as well. But it's probably a bit cheaper than some of the Ultrabooks as well. So there is a compromise on price, and that is one of the side effects. It's slightly heavier and slightly thicker as well. As I said, it's got an AMD processor on there, which it doesn't really tell you much information on the specs. It's just called a quad-core processor, and it's also got an AMD Radeon HD 8250 GPU, which means it's part of AMD's package. Like I said, it's also got SSD on there as well. So probably that processor makes it, it's not a powerhouse like a Core i5 or something like that. Again, part of probably the price compromise, but the SSD does make it feel fast, and I think that's one thing I do like about this. It does actually feel quite fast. I'm going to run the 3D Mark in a second, and we'll have a look at see how that performs. Other things I could say about it, the keyboard. Let me give this keyboard a test. The keyboard is the island type. It feels like pretty much like all Samsung devices. It's not got a cheap feel, certainly. It's got a nice feel. There's no number pad or anything like that, and there are some function keys here that you can use. Unlike some, these are proper function keys. Some of the other machines I've tested recently, they're actually Windows keys that you've got to use the FN key to do the functions. But this supports things like monitor. You can adjust the brightness in there. The Windows controls brightness, and the volume as well. I mentioned it's got these two things on here, Slide Sync and Home Sync. I can't test those because I haven't got a Samsung Galaxy, but the Slide Sync is kind of like a screen sharing and synchronization with a Samsung Galaxy device. Home Sync Lite as it's called on there, is Samsung's cloud storage system, and you can store stuff and then sync it back to here. So what I like about this device, reasonable price, 500 quid. It's got a nice keyboard. I quite like the keyboard, the Island keyboard on there. It's got a decent trackpad with Edge UI, I like that as well, and it's fairly portable. Getting about 7 hours battery life, something like that, which is pretty good. What I don't like about it, the screen 1360 by 768 seems a bit on the low side nowadays. More modern devices coming like Surface 2, 1080p screen, but on a budget device that's not too bad. It's probably a bit on the plasticky side. It's not as solid as, say, the Samsung ATIV 9, the full version. This is a cut down version. It does feel a bit on the plasticky side, these plastic parts here, but I think it looks quite nice. The processor is probably the weakest link. And the graphics, I suppose. If you're going to do any gaming on it, it's probably not really up to that. But if you're doing like Office, browsing, and Skype, and with maybe some light gaming, some casual gaming, I think it'd be fine with that. You've got the dongle for the Ethernet if that makes a deal to you and you forget you need the Ethernet and you forget your dongle. I suppose it could be a pain, but it has got USB 3, which I quite like as well. So I think overall, I think it's a decent device. It's probably not the most exciting device in the world because of the budget element to it, but it looks nice. It's not over heavy. It comes pretty clean. There's not too much extra rubbish installed on there. So overall, I quite like it. I'm going to run this 3D Mark when it finishes installing, and we'll just put that through its paces, and I'll include that at the end of the video. So thanks for watching this video. I'll include a link to a review that I'm going to write up on the digitallifestyle.com, which includes prices and specs and everything else. And more video reviews are on our YouTube channel as well. Follow me on Twitter at ASDixon. Thanks for watching. Bye. So this had 14,648 as its score, which puts it sort of in the lower league of this middle table, I should say. It's around the same speed as my Toshiba Encore 8, which is a modern generation atom powered device. So it's about reasonable for gaming on the in-app gaming or app gaming, say through the Windows Store. You can have no problem at all. I wouldn't like to run anything too high on there as a top of the line sort of game. I wouldn't want sort of PC gaming on there. I think it's going to struggle a bit, but the reasonable stuff, apps from the Windows Store, are going to work perfectly fine.